Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
There's absolutely no support for pipelines to the northwest coast.
Several coastal First Nations and the Premier reaffirm their support for a tanker ban off BC's north coast, while Alberta's government pushes back.
One province or one Premier cannot block the assets of 5 million Albertans.
Plus,
the lanes are narrow and it's fast, which is a recipe for disaster.
what is considered Metro Vancouver's worst intersection? We'll take you to the streets and
Unfortunately, we did find it present in all of the sea otters.
BC scientists find so-called forever chemicals in the bodies of marine mammals.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Premier David Eby and coastal First Nations are doubling down on their support for the tanker ban off BC's north coast. They're calling on Ottawa to do the same. That move comes as Alberta pushes for another pipeline to Tidewater. And as Katie DeRosa reports, other Indigenous communities are open to it.
A gem for the entire nation.
It's one of the richest and most productive ecoregions on Earth.
A vivid picture of BC's pristine northern coastline, which could be destroyed by one crude oil spill. That's the worst-case scenario laid out by BC's Premier and some First Nations if Prime Minister Mark Carney greenlights a second oil pipeline from Alberta and lifts the ban on tanker traffic off BC's north coast.
One crude oil spill would destroy billions of dollars in economic activity.
Eby and several coastal First Nations signing a declaration affirming support for that tanker ban and urging Ottawa to do the same.
There's absolutely no support for pipelines to the northwest coast.
Our coast is not for sale.
The moratorium on tanker traffic off BC's north has been in place for more than 50 years. It was enshrined in law by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in 2019. It's become a target for Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, who is lobbying for another pipeline from her province to the BC coast. Alberta's Environment Minister says the final decision rests with the Prime Minister.
One province or one Premier cannot block the assets of 5 million Albertans in our most important industry.
Some Indigenous communities are open to such a project. The chief of Doig River First Nation near the BC-Alberta border says his community would welcome the economic benefit as long as there are environmental safeguards.
There's always a way to find the balance between industry and our traditional ways of life.
The Conservative MP who represents BC's North Coast says there are mechanisms in place to ensure better consultation with First Nations along any proposed pipeline route.
If a project is accepted by the Major Projects Office or by the Canadian Impact Assessment Agency for review, then a formal process kicks in to consult and accommodate First Nations.
David Eby stresses there is still no company that's put its weight or cash behind another oil pipeline. Mark Carney has not yet said if he's considering lifting the tanker ban. So for now, the project remains a pipe dream. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
The Supreme Court of Canada is set to decide on Thursday if it's willing to hear a last-ditch appeal to save a flock of BC ostriches facing a cull order from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. If the High Court chooses not to take on the case, it will mark the end of all legal appeals to save the flock at the farm in Edgewood in the West Kootenay. The 400 or so birds were ordered to be killed last December after avian flu was detected. The farm's owners and a group of protesters have been camping at the site in support.
We have been warned that if the Supreme Court of Canada doesn't hear our case, that Canadian Food Inspection Agency will most likely start acting immediately on eradicating and murdering healthy animals, and that there's no digesting that.
The cull order has drawn the attention of prominent officials in the United States who have lobbied to spare the flock for a scientific study. The CFIA maintains the ostriches must be killed, citing globally recognized protocols and the risk of the H5N1 virus mutating to a form that could be more easily passed to people. CFIA agents have been on the farm for more than a month preparing for the cull. Prime Minister Mark Carney is now trying to sell his new economic plans to Canadians and more opposition members. The budget includes big spending, big cuts, and a big deficit. And as Ashley Burke reports, it's no sure thing the Liberals can get it passed.
The Prime Minister trying to sell his budget to Canadians, starting with workers at a maintenance facility for Ottawa's light rail transit.
We will modernize our buses and trains that connect our communities.
Mark Carney focusing on $50 billion for local infrastructure in his plan.
In too many of our communities, the hospitals were built in the 1970s, and they're now serving twice the population they were designed for.
Carney pointing to $5 billion to build more emergency departments, urgent care centers, and new equipment for doctors and nurses. After releasing a budget with little that hasn't already been announced to help Canadians' bottom line. Carney now facing questions about if his plan is actually as transformative as he claims.
Do you think you might have overhyped this budget?
Look, I've been around a lot of budgets. This is a very different budget. I have a different view. The scale of investment that has not been seen, full stop.
But the scale of government cuts, 40,000 jobs, isn't sitting well with some.
Ordinary Canadians are going to be impacted by these cuts in dramatic ways. It's not just public servants losing their jobs. That is a terrible thing to be doing in the middle of an unemployment crisis.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Conservatives taking aim too over the government spending.
While Canadians are already unable to eat, heat, and house themselves, why is this Prime Minister's costly budget making them pay even more?
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this budget has 75% of the measures are for our sovereignty.
The NDP has issues with the plan too.
You know, it's a big disappointment there's nothing about, grocery prices. Mr. Carney said that he will be judged by citizens on the price of grocery, and we saw nothing in that budget.
The Liberals still need to get some opposition MPs on board to avoid an election. The NDP says they'll be talking to their constituents next week before deciding how they'll vote later this month. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now, some people in BC's mining sector are praising the federal budget, while climate advocates are worried. The CBC's Jonna Bailon has more reaction from this province.
Bold and swift action is what is needed. We believe in Canada.
Some of the bold action is reflected in the federal budget's billions in new spending. The money will be going to infrastructure and productivity projects, including 2 in BC. Phase 2 of the LNG Canada project in Kitimat and the expansion of the Red Chris mine in northwest BC. These were previously highlighted as 2 of 5 nation-building projects.
I think today's federal budget puts critical minerals and metals front and center in Canada. Today's budget is very good for British Columbia.
BC's finance minister says the province is still hoping Ottawa will step up for other projects.
We're also looking for support in regards to the North Coast transmission line, a very important piece of work that will ensure that we can electrify the mining sector, electrify LNG, ensuring that it's the lowest emission LNG in Canada.
But others disagree, saying the federal government needs to do more for climate action.
We know that Canadians deserve a plan that lowers costs and emissions together. And instead of funding fossil fuel companies, the government should be investing directly in renewables, in Indigenous-led power, and green jobs at scale.
We're concerned to see this prioritization of development and building seemingly at all costs, especially when those costs are often environmental and biodiversity related.
The budget also includes cuts of about 40,000 jobs in the public service sector, as it invests billions in things like defense and housing. One political scientist says the budget appears to be doing 2 different things at the same time.
So it is trying to reposition the country's investments in a number of ways, to try to provide supports for the corporate sector, to try to reorient the country's economy, but it is also trying to cut back.
There are also major changes to control immigration in an effort to cut down on new temporary residents. Jonna Bailon, CBC News, Vancouver.
The budget does include a pledge to help pay for a proposed Filipino community and cultural center here in Vancouver.
Because the Filipino community in Vancouver is growing, it is vibrant. It is a community that has been part of the fabric of the city for generations. And to not have a place that they can call their own, I think, is a real challenge.
The centre is one of many community projects in our province being named for funding. Ottawa says once the city and province decide on a plan, it will provide the appropriate level of money. Whether you drive, cycle, or walk in and around the Lower Mainland, have you ever wondered which intersection is the most dangerous? Well, a volunteer-run agency pushing for traffic safety let people vote on it. And our Jessica Chung went to the winner.
This intersection has been named the worst intersection in Metro Vancouver. I'm at Main and 7th, where Main meets Kingsway, and a playoff-style bracket voted on by the public has crowned this notorious intersection as the worst in the region.
This intersection, I think, is hated by all road users. A lot of signage and the road markings are quite confusing. The lanes are narrow and it's fast, which is a recipe for disaster.
It's not uncommon to see puzzled drivers navigating this complicated multi-lane intersection. This car got stuck in the middle of the intersection, and this one made a hesitant wrong turn out of confusion. This intersection beat out 32 others after thousands of people voted. The group behind the bracket says the intersection sees a high number of crashes each year.
128 crashes a year. That is nearly one crash in every 3 days, and that includes a pandemic. In 2024 alone, there were 220 crashes at this intersection, and all of them happened right here.
And those in the community are not surprised by this unfortunate accolade.
It just feels really unsafe.
Well, if you understand the algorithm, I don't think it's that crazy. You start to get a feel for it.
Well, I think as a pedestrian, it's fine as long as I follow the signals. I'm good. Yeah, and I've never seen an accident here, but it is a strange intersection.
The local BIA is worried that things are going to get worse as the area braces for a 4-month closure of a stretch of Broadway for subway construction in January.
This is a living, breathing neighborhood with tens of thousands of people moving through it every day, and just to cut off traffic moving through it and thinking that this is going to be simple, the chaos that is going to create.
The road safety advocacy group is calling for more signage and pedestrian-controlled crosswalks to make the intersection safer. Jessica Chung, CBC News, Vancouver.
Our science and climate specialist Darius Madava here with our first glance at the weather and a storm, you say?
A storm indeed. We have a deep low pressure system off the coast here. You can see it swirling and moving north, pushing a lot of moisture into BC. That means some snow coming to the more northern parts of the province, and at those higher elevations, snow as well. Some heavy precipitation coming to southwestern BC as well as up the coast. Some showers breaking into the southern interior. Snow levels in the southern interior down around 1,000 meters overnight, and then coming back up to close to 2,000 meters during the day. So most folks seeing that transition from flurries to showers in both the southern and central interior. But in the Peace, temperatures are staying low enough that we're going to continue to see snow over the next few days. And it's not until the end of the weekend that temperatures come up and we'll start to see some of that be washed away or melting away. A few weather advisories are still in place, mostly weather statements because we have some strong winds coinciding with high tides. So Environment Canada is warning of the potential of some coastal flooding, but also a rainfall warning for northern sections of Metro Vancouver, so the North Shore, Coquitlam, Maple Ridge, those areas, as well as up through Howe Sound and Squamish. We're talking in the range of 50 to 60 millimeters tomorrow into the overnight period, tonight into tomorrow, and then potentially another 40 millimeters coming Thursday afternoon. We do have a bit of a break in the rain tomorrow morning, but Dan, the strong winds we're here today. They're going to return tomorrow afternoon, and the storm conditions are here until the weekend.
Okay, we are warned. Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Still ahead, marine researchers are sounding the alarm as harmful forever chemicals make their way into the bodies of sea otters in BC. You'll want to see this.
Small businesses are facing extortion threats and violence. Families are afraid of their safety. As a pattern of targeted crime grows throughout our communities, your voice matters. Join us on November 13th at the Surrey Arts Centre for a special CBC News Town Hall, Extortion, Communities in Fear. It's totally free, but space is limited, so reserve your spot today by heading to cbc.ca/BC Community.
Harmful so-called forever chemicals are making their way into the bodies of sea otters on BC's coast. And researchers say that is bad news for marine ecosystems as a whole. Claire Palmer explains why.
These cute, fluffy sea otters could be full of toxic substances introduced by consumer products making their way into the water. UBC Masters candidate Dana Price helped lead a new study underlining the risks that forever chemicals pose to marine animals.
This was our first analysis that we've got of it, and unfortunately, we did find it present in all of the sea otters.
Price's study looked at the livers of 11 dead sea otters collected from Vancouver Island and the south coast. They found surprisingly high levels of PFAs, polyfluoroalkyl substances more commonly known as the forever chemicals, inside their organs, a possible health risk to humans and animals alike.
The main takeaway here is that we did find these contaminants in sea otters. This gives us a baseline that we can compare things to in the future. So some good news. Bad that it's in all of the sea otters, but good news is it's a lot lower than some other things, than other populations for PFAS, like in California.
Price's research shows higher chemical concentrations around city centers like Victoria and less so on the North Island. The Canadian rates are still below those in parts of the United States. In part, she says, because of regulation from Ottawa. But Peter Ross, a senior scientist at the Raincoast Conservation Foundation, says with over 15,000 PFAs on the market, more needs to be done.
The study adds to the body of knowledge that Ottawa needs to make a decision as to how to proceed with regulations or not on this class of chemicals. And this is a hot topic in the nation's capital for regulators at this point in time.
Similar studies have also found high levels of forever chemicals in killer whales. In response, the federal government has introduced some regulation around the use of certain contaminants. Health Canada has also introduced regulations on how many of these chemicals can be present in drinking water. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Nanaimo.
It can be hard to find a camping spot on the South Coast, especially at the height of summer. So, Metro Vancouver is considering expanding its overnight camping locations across this region. As Shivani Joshi reports, that could mean tents and trailers in the suburbs.
It's an annual nuisance. Eager campers rush to book sites before they're gone. And in BC, those sites book up fast.
Campgrounds are very popular, extremely popular, often book out within the day that the camping is open. And between 2022 and 2024, demand is increased from 65 to 85%.
Now, the Metro Vancouver Regional District is looking to meet that demand. They already have 7 parks with camping spots, some individual, some group, but they're hoping to add more. A new report identifies 19 potential camping sites in the region. These would include everything from wilderness camping to group camping to individual drive-in sites, where you can pitch a tent or even roll up your RV. That would bring campers to parks like Pacific Spirit, Burnaby Lake, Belcarra, and Campbell Valley. Conservation groups say the expansion would be a good step in spreading out usage amongst more parks and ease the pressure on provincial campgrounds.
Figuring out places to put those people is really important. A number of the BC parks in the area are, being overused. And so the more green space we can free up as it relates to municipalities planning for the future.
Metro Vancouver's goal isn't just to meet demand, it's also to make camping accessible.
A lot of people aren't able to go long distance or have the equipment to go long distance. So these are very reachable by car and local within an hour.
Which is welcome news for this local youth camping group.
The opportunity for different parts of Metro Vancouver to have more camping opportunities allows us to look at having our camp partake in those parks. This would provide an opportunity for us to kind of get into those demographics and remove the barrier for access for families from those areas.
Funding for the expansion has been approved, but according to Metro Vancouver, all sites identified still require additional review. Shivani Joshi, CBC News, Vancouver.
What's better than one rainbow on a stormy day? Let's have 2. The biggest pot of gold in beautiful Burnaby. Darius will have your BC-wide weather forecast coming up. Back to the federal budget now. The Liberals are still looking for more supporters, but one less than yesterday. Nova Scotia MP Chris D'Entremont left the Conservatives to join the government. He says Pierre Poilievre's leadership is part of the reason he made the jump, and he may not be the only one. More now from Kate McKenna.
It was a hero's welcome for former Conservative MP Chris D'Entremont at his first Liberal caucus meeting.
Chris's decision to join the government caucus at this crucial moment for our country is exceptionally valuable and important.
Prime Minister Mark Carney says the surprise floor crossing came after a meeting.
Mr. D'Entremont and I had a discussion in advance of his decision, as was appropriate. I think he wanted to test what we were going to do.
The Nova Scotia MP says he didn't see his red Tory values reflected by the party's leader, Pierre Poilievre.
I wasn't feeling that I was aligned with the ideals of what the leader of the opposition had been talking about.
And he teased there are other Conservatives that feel the same way.
I would suggest that there probably are those that are in the same boat, but I will let them tell their stories if that time comes.
But Conservatives say they feel betrayed.
I think it's shameful what he did. I could never imagine doing something like that, to misrepresent yourself to voters, to lie to your volunteers.
A floor crosser is disingenuous, disloyal, selfish, and opportunistic.
Well, I think they should look at themselves and see if they're offering the right thing to Canadians.
D'Entremont's defection puts the Liberals just 2 votes shy of a majority at a crucial time as Mark Carney looks to pass his first budget, sparking rumors that more floor crossings could be coming.
Last spring, Canadians elected a minority parliament and put a check and balance on the power of an untested prime minister. Mr. Carney is trying to manipulate that result and get a majority Canadians did not elect.
My sense is it would be a mistake to put all of our effort in trying to recruit people, but instead let's do the good work of governing and convince people that we're the right party to govern.
Chris D'Entremont says he wasn't offered any sort of cabinet position in exchange for crossing the floor. He says he left because he no longer felt represented by the Conservative Party. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Some homeowners in BC are still trying to seek clarity after a BC Supreme Court judge ruled the Cowichan tribes have Aboriginal title over a parcel of land in Richmond. The province says it is appealing that decision. Jason Proctor spoke with our Leanne Young earlier about the uncertainty and, in some cases, anxiety.
There's a ton of uncertainty around this and what it means for the relationship between Aboriginal title and private land ownership. And really the main takeaways from this 600-page document, it's kind of both a history document and a legal document. You kind of go into what the roots of this claim were, which go back to BC's first governor, who promised to kind of put aside, exempt from being given out or sold, land that made up this settlement that the Cowichan had, before the British arrived or before there was any colonization of the area. And so what happened is the guy who was the first person tasked with, looking after that, ensuring that promise was kept, actually, the guy who's Port Moody's named after, Richard Clement Moody, ends up selling, buying a couple of pieces of land himself covertly. And that sets in sort of motion this process in the many decades and century after, whereby that land has been bought, sold, but breaking that original promise. And so the judge attempts to basically set that right here, saying, okay, well, you've got Aboriginal title over this land. She invalidated the title, the ownership over the Crown and the sort of BC and the federal lands. But with regards to the private landowners, there's about 150 landowners affected. She said those two things can coexist, and that's what is such a head scratcher. How did Aboriginal title and private ownership coexist?
Well, I guess then that is the question now. We saw there was the meeting held in Richmond a couple of weeks ago. Hundreds of homeowners showed up, and you said it's only about 150 landowners that are really affected. So it set off this huge conversation across the province. Where do we go from here? The source of anxiety.
The judge addressed actually that anxiety, and this sort of said it's hyperbole. And what's needed with regards to this is for both sides, the Cowichan and the Crown, ultimately, on behalf of private landowners, to reconcile this, to negotiate what that means. What that negotiation means will end up being something else that's discussed in the courts, no doubt. And this is nowhere from settled. But I mean, basically, that's what she says is going to happen, is reconciliation and negotiation.
To the U.S. now, where Democrats are celebrating wins in local and statewide votes, including 2 governorships and the mayor of New York City. As Sasha Petrusik explains, what has emerged are some possible pathways for party success a year out from crucial national midterms.
For U.S. Democrats, the victories are a sign that just maybe political fortunes are turning. 2 new governors swept in Virginia and New Jersey, along with other state officials. But it's New York City where excitement seems loudest. For a young Muslim, even many Democrats didn't believe electable, a self-proclaimed democratic socialist.
We chose hope together. Hope over tyranny.
Dubbed the smiling socialist, Zoran Mamdani charmed New Yorkers, appealing most to workers and immigrants, with policies ridiculed by Republicans, frozen rents and universal child care.
He's the new communist, Marxist, anti-Semite, anti-police, anarchist in town. I think you're going to see a lot of people move out of New York City.
But for those hurt by rising prices,
things are going to get so much better in New York City.
Mamdani's warning to the president: heed dissatisfied voters.
So Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up.
Stop this nonsense.
Trump says Republicans lost because his own name wasn't on the ballot.
Our opponents are hell-bent on turning America into a communist Cuba or socialist Venezuela.
Even Democrats are divided over Mamdani's policies, but they're all cheering for the party's new assertiveness, including a West Coast victory where Californians backed a new electoral map.
After poking the bear, this bear roared.
One that gives Democrats an advantage and counters opposite moves by Republicans in states like Texas. It may also strengthen Newsom's chance to become the Democratic challenger for president in 2028. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments today over Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs. The justices weighing whether he exceeded his power as commander-in-chief when he imposed them on dozens of countries, including Canada. It could take months for the judges to render a decision. But as Katie Nicholson reports, they seem skeptical of the administration's arguments.
Before the arguments even began, Democratic lawmakers lined up outside the Supreme Court, making their case.
They're allowing Trump to tax any good from any country for any reason, as long as he calls it an emergency.
Inside, arguments scheduled for 80 minutes ran for twice that, a case that seeks to answer 2 main questions: whether the president has the power to impose tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the 1977 law he used to justify sweeping duties on other countries, citing the border and fentanyl trafficking.
President Trump has declared that these emergencies are country-killing and not sustainable, that they threaten the bedrock of our national and economic security.
The case also aims to answer whether it is even constitutional. The plaintiffs in the case say it is not.
Our founders gave that taxing power to Congress alone. Yet here, the president bypassed Congress and imposed one of the largest tax increases in our lifetimes.
The lower courts have ruled against the Trump administration. The Supreme Court justices, even the conservative ones, skeptical, especially about the Oval Office taking power away from Congress.
What president's ever going to give that power back? Pretty rare president.
Trump has repeatedly made it clear how important this case is to him, posting last night on social media, "The United States Supreme Court case is literally life or death for our country. A Supreme Court decision against the tariffs, Trump's signature accomplishment, could be potentially embarrassing and also be an administrative quagmire if plaintiffs get to claw their duties back," as Justice Burritt noted.
You're saying before the government promised reimbursement, and now you're saying, well, that's rich, but how would this work? It seems to me like it could be a mess.
If the Supreme Court rules with the lower courts, the administration could still try to enact other tariffs, one through an act in the 1970s and another one going all the way back to the 1930s. But those would also likely face court challenges. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Washington.
A handful of people are still missing tonight, with local authorities in Louisville shifting their focus to a recovery effort. Sarah Levitt now with what happened, starting with the harrowing moments right after the plane went down.
A shocking, terrifying sight in Louisville, Kentucky. A UPS cargo plane crashing immediately after taking off from the airport Tuesday evening, bound for Hawaii. A fiery trail left behind and thick black smoke.
Louisville looked apocalyptic last night. The images of smoke coming over our city, of debris falling in every neighborhood, people trapped in their homes.
Authorities say all 3 on board are dead, as well as 9 on the ground. They believe that includes a child. Some people are still missing, while others were injured. 2 businesses were hit, including a petroleum recycling company. Authorities say that may have triggered further smaller explosions. Jenna Cambron was working at a restaurant the plane narrowly missed and says she heard several loud booms and the building shook.
Went out the front door and I looked back just to all the smoke in the air, and I saw flames on the ground right behind me, so I didn't really know what to expect next. So I just started taking off and running. I was just in shock, honestly.
Now, Kentucky's governor has declared a state of emergency. The preliminary investigation has found that while taking off, a plume of flame appeared by the left wing.
A post-impact fire ensued, which covers approximately almost a half of a mile. Now, we have viewed airport CCTV security coverage, which shows the left engine detaching from the wing during the takeoff roll.
The black boxes were found and will be analyzed. Also at the crash site, a search and rescue mission, now one of recovery.
The condition may make it a little more difficult to identify some. That may take some testing.
A heartbreaking reality for families whose loved ones haven't come home. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
It's a new grocery store that promises some big savings. The only catch? The food might be past its best before date, but some shoppers say the deals are real. Next.
The Weather Update is brought to you by BC Cancer Foundation. Give today to bring more progress and possibilities to patients and their families. Your donation changes everything.
Science and climate specialist Darius Madavi here with the BC-wide weather forecast. Lovely to see the double rainbow over beautiful Burnaby.
That's right.
Maybe not so many of those going forward.
I mean, we're going to have more chances for rainbows, Dan, because there's more rain coming.
Look at you.
I know.
Science flex.
So the rain is tapered off for much of southwest BC tonight, but it is returning as we get into tomorrow here in Metro Vancouver. It'll probably be arriving around noon, but for parts of the island, earlier than that, a little bit earlier in the morning. Now, this deep low pressure system is what's driving these frontal systems to move across BC, spreading those strong winds and heavy precipitation in places. So here we are later tonight. There's that next wave of heavy precipitation that's coming along with the next frontal system. Expect strong winds when that comes through as well. We'll look at that in a moment. Snow for those higher elevations, freezing levels low enough that many places like Whistler are going to see snow like that. But for places like the local mountains, not entirely certain that we're going to be getting anything too substantial. Now, that heavy precipitation moves through the Fraser Valley as we get into Friday morning. By the time most folks are up, we're probably going to be drying out, and then the sunshine comes out not long after. We also have a chance of a little bit of sunshine tomorrow morning. I should mention that as well. In the Peace, we have a lot of snow, not a lot of snow, but probably starting yesterday and through the end of the work week, about 10 centimeters of snow total in some parts of the Peace. That should start to go away as we get into warmer temperatures at the end of the weekend. Temperatures finally come back up above zero, thinking 7 or 8 degrees by Sunday. But in the meantime, sticking below zero, which is why we're expecting to continue to see that snow fall rather than being washed away by any rain. In the southern interior, we're mostly seeing showers, not so much that snow. I also wanted to mention the winds because we do have those advisories in place. They should drop after tomorrow, but that next wave of strong winds comes as we get into tomorrow morning for much of the island and much of coastal BC, the south coast of BC, but not as strong as we saw earlier this week, so not really expecting to see more wind warnings issued. That could change, but for now, I would count on much more calm winds than before, but still gusting 60, 70 kilometers per hour, maybe around Victoria, gusting up to 80. Conditions tomorrow across the province, a fair amount of sunshine in parts of the interior, and again, maybe even some breaks of sunshine tomorrow morning here before that next wave of precipitation arrives. And here's our 5-day forecast, Dan. We have tomorrow some more rain and gusty winds coming, but then we clear out through Friday, and then more sunshine comes for the weekend.
Well, that'll be nice. Thank you, Darius.
Thank you.
A new kind of grocery store in Quebec is promising big savings at a time when food prices just keep rising. The low-cost chain sells discounted items, some of them past their best before date. As the CBC's Gabrielle Guindy found out, shoppers say the deals are hard to beat.
I'm at a type of grocery store that's gaining a lot of momentum. It sells discounted items, and people shopping here say they're saving a lot of money.
I spent 52 days, and if I would have buy it everywhere else, probably $150.
The food is sourced through distributors and manufacturers, so products that are mislabeled or can't be sold in regular grocery stores end up here, like this beef that was supposed to go to a restaurant. It's sold at a discount, making prices more affordable. Another reason for why prices are so cheap is because they sell items that are near or past their best before date.
Best before is almost more of a recommendation about marketing, whereas expiry for something like a meat product is, about the safety of consuming that food.
Experts say the stigma around low-cost stores like this one seems to be shifting.
Years ago, there was a bit of a negative stigma in being a bargain hunter, but nowadays, lots of people shop at these retail locations.
Just 5 years ago, people are looking, no, I'm not touching the box because it's expired. Now, because of the economy, people are, oh, you know what, it's 88 cents. I'm gonna try.
As for Liquidation Marie, business is booming. In 13 years, they have 8 locations and plan to expand to 10 locations within the next year.
As a company grows, there's usually added cost of distribution, transport, HR, you name it, and those costs tend to be passed on to consumers.
But while expansion comes with its own set of challenges, this type of store and the products they sell at a cheaper price are clearly in demand. Gabriel Gindi, CBC News, Longueuil.
What happens when a medical cure creates a disease that attacks your body? That can be the case for leukemia. But coming up, we speak with a BC Children's Hospital researcher who's touting a big breakthrough. You'll want to stick around.
Small businesses are facing extortion threats and violence. Families are afraid of their safety. As a pattern of targeted crime grows throughout our communities, your voice matters. Join us on November 13th at the Surrey Arts Centre for a special CBC News Town Hall, Extortion, Communities in Fear. It's totally free, but space is limited, so reserve your spot today by heading to cbc.ca/BC Community.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox. Join CBC's Michelle Elliott on November 12th for an unforgettable evening of storytelling, leadership, healing, and unity at the Better Not Bitter Summit. For tickets, visit betternotbitter.ca. And the Chutzpah Festival returns November 12th to 23rd with an exciting lineup of performances including dance, music, theater, and more. For tickets, visit chutzpahfestival.com.
When fighting cancer, treatments, as many people know, can be painful and long-lasting. Think of radiation and chemotherapy.
Leukemia is often very difficult, especially for kids. There is a treatment that will cure it, but it can cause new problems. I met a doctor at BC Children's Hospital who says they've made a breakthrough in treating this disease that affects thousands of cancer survivors. What happens when the cure becomes the disease? It sounds like a philosophical question, but for all too many, it's a reality. It starts with a bone marrow transplant, which for some people is their only option.
It gives lifelong cures for these types of cancers in somebody who has no other hope.
Basically, you rip the patient's immune system out at the roots and use cells from a healthy donor to seed a new one. Usually, this allows the new immune system and the patient to thrive, usually.
Sometimes not only is it attacking the leukemia cells, but it attacks all the other tissues and organs in the body.
That's Dr. Kirk Schultz, an oncologist and director of the Cancer Research Program at BC Children's Hospital. He has spent decades studying this condition, graft versus host disease. And it can be devastating for young cancer survivors who needed a bone marrow transplant.
Any part of our body can be affected, and it causes permanent scarring in tissues of the skin or the joints, so that a person can't move their arm and legs normally or walk normally, or that they are a pulmonary cripple if it affects the lungs. It can be very, very debilitating or fatal.
For some patients, symptoms will fade over time and with treatment. For others, chronic graft versus host disease will be with them for life. And for everyone who gets a bone marrow transplant, developing graft versus host disease is a very real possibility.
And in children, it's 15 to 20% of the time, this chronic form of the disease, which is what we focus on, and in adults, it's 30 or 40% of the time.
Just imagine what that's like for kids born with immune deficiencies, cancer patients of all ages. Every year, thousands of kids across North America are diagnosed with leukemia, a blood cancer that can devastate the immune system. So they wait for a donor, they go through aggressive chemo or radiation or both, and they think they're cured. Then their doctor has to deliver this news.
I'll say you're cured of your leukemia. That's the good news. The bad news, now you have a brand new disease that we've caused.
This means many patients are stuck between a rock and a hard place.
One adult said to me, if I had known what chronic graft versus host disease was, and I'm suffering from it now, I'm not sure I would have gone to the transplant in the first place.
When you're staring at the rock, it's hard to imagine the hard place being much worse. But graft versus host disease is devastating. Consider a normal transplant. If you try to do a transplant that isn't a good match, you get graft rejection, where the recipient's immune system recognizes the donated organ is foreign and attacks it. And this can destroy the organ. But with a bone marrow transplant, the thing you're transplanting is the immune system. So if those donated immune cells realize they're in unfamiliar territory, things can go very wrong. Because to them, everything is foreign. So those cells might think that anything, everything, should be destroyed. And that's graft versus host disease. This means finding a good match is critical.
So we actually can't do the same level of mismatching as a kidney transplant because if you did, it would be uniform. The graft versus host disease would be fatal in every single patient. So we have to do very much closer matching.
But there is some good news. See, doctors have long suspected there's more to graft versus host disease than meets the eye. And now Dr. Schultz and his team have found proof.
Children's Hospital is the first place to actually show that it's more than one disease.
That helps explain one of the most troubling aspects of graft versus host. The fact that finding the right treatment can be a shot in the dark.
We know that patients fail their first treatments, they fail their second treatments, their third treatments. We have some patients going on to 4 or 5 treatments trying to get rid of the disease. And what we need is a much better understanding what's the right thing to do right away.
That wish could soon become a reality. Take a look at this. It's part of what Dr. Schultz calls a 360 view of the immune system of a single patient. Information about cells, metabolism, DNA, and so much more. Data like this was collected from hundreds of patients and fed into a specialized machine learning model that identified, for the first time, 3 subtypes of graft versus host disease. But the really amazing part came when they looked closer at patients with each type of the disease and which treatments actually worked for them.
We have some initial clues that one of the types that we identified responds better to what is usually used up front, and one doesn't respond at all.
That information is invaluable. The idea that a simple blood sample could tell you whether a treatment will work, incredible.
Consider the first step in trying to personalize what's the best treatment to start right up front so we get the best cure rates with the least amount of side effects.
Dr. Schultz said that this could be used clinically within just 3 to 5 years, a blink of an eye in the medical system. And with more data from more patients, the tool will only improve, which could mean less worry for the kids who need a bone marrow transplant, and for the cancer survivors who do get graft versus host disease, no more painful time wasted on treatments that won't work. Darius Mandavi, CBC News, Vancouver.
It's nice to have and hear and see some hope.
I know.
Nicely done. Great story.
It was nice to talk to the researchers who made it happen and have to talk to the kids all the time, and they were really excited. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, YouTube, and our website.
And we will have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. See you then.